Rules Confirmation and Public Elections Committee. Welcome to all of our members, our returning member, Council Lady Murphy, and everybody new to the committee. My thanks to Council Lady Sepulveda for agreeing to serve as vice chair. And we'll get started. First of all, of course, we operate under a set of rules of procedure. Every term, we still need to work together as a committee to come up with those rules for next term. So on the floor tonight, we'll be moving to implement the rules from last term, with the exception of one rule related to capital improvement budgets. That will give everybody an extra 2 weeks to submit their requests, since it's the beginning of a new term, and a lot of folks have expressed the desire to have a couple of weeks. So that'll be coming up on the floor tonight. And then between now and the beginning of December, we'll have a series of meetings to establish the rules that we'll use for the next 4 years. First piece of legislation up is Resolution RS 2019-31, Mendez, Withers, and others, expresses the support and commitment of the Metro Council toward principles constituting a community covenant with the aim of increasing prosperity and reducing poverty in Nashville and Davidson County.
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Mendez, would you like to speak on this?
Sure. I think the caption pretty much covers it. This is a platform. It's a statement of intentions of how we'll look at bills coming up in the new council term. And there's two amendments in the package. One of them is by me, which tweaks a little bit of the language in a whereas. And the other one is by Councilman Glover. And I would urge the committee to recommend not approving Councilman Glover's amendment. Part of the language in there talks about the full support of the full council. Maybe I don't know if one of you guys has the exact language. What is the language?
Upon a consensus vote of the full council.
Consensus vote of the full council. I mean, among other things, I don't think those are terms that have any meaning in what we do. Full council means all 40, which is more limiting than what we have. There's rules about what it takes to pass things, ordinances by 21 votes, resolutions by majority of those voting. And so a consensus of the full council could be read to mean 40 out of 40, as opposed to the majority or the 21 votes that we usually have. And so to the extent that it isn't terms that we typically use and would appear to be more limiting, I would urge the committee to not accept that amendment.
Motion on the Mendez amendment to the Mendez resolution.
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment? The amendment adds, the Mendez amendment adds the line, the Metropolitan government should also improve opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses and be more accountable publicly about the effectiveness of these efforts. Any discussion on adding that line to it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'd like to present Amendment B.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with what you just heard. And it says upon a consensus vote of the full council. In other words, the full council brings it and votes on it as opposed, because when I read it, the original bill sounds like it's a committee will be doing this and will pretty much so determine what the council will be doing as a whole. We always should be bringing this to the floor. And when we say a vote, a consensus vote, that if it gets 20 or it gets a simple majority in that vote, then it would pass. So I'm not asking us to change any of our rules. I simply am asking, because I got a lot of people calling me, asking me to support this, and I'm trying my best to, but I can't support it the way it's written because it's a little too vague in my mind. And so that's why I'm asking that if we're gonna do these things, let's bring it to the full council, let's have it voted on, and if it gets a simple majority and it passes, fine, then it passes. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. But I tried to find every way possible to be able to support this, and with the current language that's in it, I can't support it. So that's why I offered up the amendment.
Hannah, how would you read the effect of this amendment and the language consensus vote?
So I would agree that the
that it's not traditionally how vote counts are worded in the charter or in ordinances or state law, where it would normally be something like the membership to which the council is entitled when it means 40. I think that it could be read as either way, that each sponsor has, I guess, discussed it. I don't think that it necessarily reads as 40 out of 40, but then again, I think that that's a legitimate argument as how it could be read.
And I'm not certain if if we can line out, because that's certainly that's not the purpose of it. It was a simple majority. If a simple majority passes it, then we go forward with it. But if it's not going to come on the floor, then I can't support it as it's written, because I don't believe that we're letting committees now, dictate what we're doing for the entire city. And that's the way I interpreted when I read the original resolution.
Councilor.
Hannah, to clarify and make sure that I understood your legal opinion on this, it's kind of like a potato situation.
Right. I was gonna say, it's not normally how any of the recognized limitations are currently worded in the charter.
Somewhat of the same means,
Right.
getting to the same end. I'm comfortable with the Mendez language.
Well, let me, may I have one more piece,
One second, let me
please?
so as it reads now, it says, "The council will adopt practices to implement the principles recited herein through its committee structure," and blah, 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 and this changes it to "through its committee structure and upon a consensus vote of the full council."
I'm going to leave it simply at this. I didn't write this. Our legal staff did. And so if it doesn't fit within the criteria of what it should be, then I'm not an attorney. You are, others are. And so that's why the meaning of, just a vote on the floor for me was the reason that I put the amendment in there, that because I interpret that as the committees will now be dictating what the council will be doing. Whether it is or it's not. So we have two different interpretations on what, the meaning of my amendment, the meaning of his, and then the original meaning of this particular resolution. So with that, I would ask you to support it, and let's let the council decide if they want to adopt it or not.
Anybody else? Any other discussion?
Well, I just looked up consensus, and it says a general agreement. And if you're saying there's a general agreement of the full council, that says 40 members have to agree. And from my experience, that's what consensus means, that it was agreed upon every committee member, whether it's council or it's some other type of committee. A consensus is that everyone agrees. And I don't understand why we have to have everyone to agree. I think that just having the majority and us to pass our resolutions as we have in the past should be sufficient, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't understand. I respect what it is that you are saying, but
I merely asked for, and it was written by the lawyers.
but
I didn't do it.
but is this you saying that it was a committee? This wasn't this resolution wasn't submitted by a particular committee, was it?
It was sponsored by Councilman Mendez and
Right.
some others.
Right.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
And I'll close with this. The only thing, Council Lady, I got a lot of phone calls from people asking me to join in on this. And I said, I cannot do that unless there's greater clarification on how this would actually flow through. And so I had to hang up on the language of the original written resolution, and that's why I introduced it. Again, it wasn't my necessary language here on the consensus. I interpret it differently than you, but I understand what you're saying, and that's fine. I'll be glad to strike that, but I still think, I can't support it if the whole council is not going to, and with a majority vote, pass it.
Councilman Mendez?
Hannah, the council by charter can't act unless it's by ordinance passed by 21 or a resolution with the majority.
Right.
That no committee has any authority to bind the council on anything ever, right?
Right, and I would say, as I read it, it just commits it to going through the committee structure of the council, not stopping at the committee not stopping at committees and before it goes to the full council. I think that.
And if it did, it wouldn't be binding.
Right.
Renew my motion to approve.
Yeah, all in favor of
Aye.
Amendment B?
Aye.
Are we on a motion?
Oh, wait, no. We're on a motion to approve the Mendez bill as amended with
We're on
the
Amendment
Mendez.
B. We're voting on Amendment B.
I don't think there was a motion on Amendment B.
I think she's
Is
right.
there a motion on Amendment B? You're right.
I mean, I'll give the motion on.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor of Amendment B?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
No.
Anybody abstaining? 6-1 against. We're now on the bill as amended with Amendment A. Any discussion on the resolution as amended by Amendment A?
Renew my motion.
Seeing no discussion, all in favor of Resolution RS 2019-31 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, RS 2019-32, Syracuse urges the President of the United States Congress, and the Tennessee General Assembly to enact legislation securing the citizenship of internationally adopted adult individuals. A motion?
Motion.
Second.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in an era where the federal government and cities across the nation are really pitted against the federal government's policies, here's something that we as cities can actually encourage the federal government to pass. So right now, in both houses, in the Senate and the House, there is a Adoptee Citizenship Act of 2019, and it really just closes a loophole. In the Child Citizenship Act of 2000, it basically took adoptee children and only applied it to those that were 18 or under at the time of the bill. So those that are now that are older than 18, they didn't get the benefits of the Child Citizenship Act of becoming a U.S. citizen. So this bill actually just closes the loophole, and so cities across the nation are joining with Adoptees for Justice and asking for the federal government to please pass this.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Resolution 2019-33, Rosenberg. We do
You don't have to pass it on.
Approves the election of certain notaries public for Davidson County.
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? This is a standard bill we do for approving notaries public. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Yeah. Recommend.
All right, late files. So when we have late files come, we're not voting on approving them or not. We're basically we're giving our blessing to suspending the rules on the floor. In this case, these are late filed resolutions, so we're saying that it's okay for the council to go ahead and consider and then
Or
subsequently
saying it's not
vote.
okay.
Or saying it's not okay for the council to debate and subsequently vote on them. First one is a resolution approving Amendment 3 to a grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Children's Services, Metropolitan Government, Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through Davidson County Juvenile Court for a safe baby court to serve at-risk children.
Who's the sponsor?
Judge Callaway.
Okay. I think he's doing a press conference.
Maybe the judge would like to explain the
Judge?
in the background.
Maybe.
Front row there,
Something about this.
Your Honor.
Thank you. The reason why this is an amendment to a contract that we have with the State of Tennessee Department of Children's Services. The State of Tennessee gave Department of Children's Services a bucket of money to fund safe baby courts across the state. Davidson County was the first one, and we're the best. All this amendment would do would actually increase the amount of money that we would be getting. The reason that we're asking for it to go against the rules of filing is that the state needs to distribute it as soon as possible. And most other counties could just sign something and get it done. We have to go through the council because it is a council resolution. And they just need us to hurry up and get it done so that they can hurry up and give us the money. The money would go towards direct services. Thank you. The money would go towards direct services for parents that are going through the court, through the Safe Babies Court, particularly like if we needed to give them bus passes or money for diapers or whatever it is that they need to help them to reunify with their children. That would be what the fund would be. And it's an additional $35,000 that they want to give us.
Thank you. Does anybody have a problem with Safe Babies?
I was just gonna say, I think the urgency was explained very well.
Yes.
And at least our tradition from the previous term was when there is urgency like this, that is a perfect example of why we should suspend the rules for late file. And so I think that we should be extremely supportive of suspending the rules in this case.
Okay, everybody good? We're good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
The next one is mine.
This is a resolution requesting that the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, or TDEC, deny a permit that would allow the Hutton Stone Quarry to be dewatered and filled with construction materials. So, is the sponsor or another sponsor?
Is there a reason for the late file?
Yes, the reason for the late file is that it seemed like this was going to be resolved one way or another in advance of the filing deadline. It now appears that they'll be probably in the next couple weeks deciding whether to issue this permit. There's a quarry out on McCrory Lane right across the river from my neighborhood that is 125 feet deep and 12.2 acres big, and the owners of it have applied to TDEC to be allowed to dump all that water into the Harpeth River, the scenic Harpeth River, and then fill up the hole with 168,000 dump trucks of construction materials, which creates a range of environmental issues and quality of life issues. So we're asking TDEC, joining about 1,000 of our residents who have submitted comment to TDEC in opposition, to deny this permit.
Is it true that there is a rare jellyfish in this?
The Tennessee freshwater jellyfish is in fact in this thing, and a lot of people do scuba diving.
Can you tell us how did it get into the quarry? Is that out of the
You'd
scope?
have to ask the jellyfish.
Is that outside the scope of this resolution?
It is.
Am I out of order?
We're not congratulating the jellyfish.
I will be filing that for our next meeting.
Deal.
Does anybody have any reason why this shouldn't be considered by the body as a late file bill?
I think the sooner we get our opinion to TDEC, the better.
Thank you. All right. Anybody have anything else that they would like to add?
Do we have any dates for our rules meetings or anything you're thinking of, or do we need to tell you when's not good for us?
We don't yet. The council office will send out some do these dates work, do these dates not work emails. We'll get going.
Dave, was there a resolution for name change, honorary name change for James Turner?
I think that might come to us on second.
Yeah, I think that's
That's what
that
they'll
needs
read.
3 readings. Yeah, you're just on
Go ahead,
first
that
reading
comes to us,
tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Nope. All right. No other business. We're adjourned. And just in time.
Good meeting, good meeting.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.